And we are live. Good morning. Good morning. We are approaching week 18. Week 18 had some games yesterday. The fantasy football season might be over for a lot of leagues, but we continue on talking about football, trying to win you guys some more money. What's up, guys? Nick Skrip here on the Extra Points Show, presented to you guys by Fantasy Points. Here with my co-host Major. Major, we had some hits and misses last week, but one stands out, that Jamar Chase call, I believe, that you had last week.
Yeah, I went out on a limb and called Jamar Chase. I have more than it was like 50, 60 yards, and he had like 1,000. So happy about that one. This season, man, is gone. It seemed like it took forever to get here, and then it's just like over so fast. So, yeah, man, the season's gone already, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it did fly by without a doubt. I had to bring up that Jamar Chase call just because that guy absolutely went nuts last week, and I just had this memory from your call that you said it like a modest mark, and this guy went for 266 yards. Unreal. So
Exactly.
if you guys are tuning in with us, what Major and I have done all season is we go through two of our partner sites here at Fantasy Points, Monkey Knife Fight and Thrive Fantasy, and we go through player prop picks. And if you are tuning in and you are new to these sites, we have some promo codes that you can get some instant deposit matchups back. And it's a good show. It's a good show. So if you like some things that I say, some things that Major says, you can combine some bets and win some money today here in Week 18 before the NFL playoffs start. So we'll start things off today with Monkey Knife Fight. And if you are not familiar with Monkey Knife Fight, very easy to find. You can go to monkeyknifefight.com, or you can go to the App Store and just type in Monkey Knife Fight and find it pretty easily there as well. How it works is you pick a sport. So today, obviously, we're talking about the NFL. You select the game matchup, or you can select the early slate of games or the late slate of games, and then you pick your fantasy contest. They have more or less. They have rapid fire, stat shootout. They have some fantasy options, some sack options. They have a bunch, and then you choose your buy-in. So again, if you are new, use the promo code Fantasy Points. So it's Fantasy PTS all put together to claim an instant 100% deposit matchup up to $100. And if you sign up, you get a free $5 just for signing up. So go check that out. Major, Monkey Knife Fight. What is a bet you have some confidence in for today?
All right, I'm going to go with the early game, hit the slate button, and I went with the sack attack. I have to get 3.5 sacks, and for a prize of 1.5. And I went with TJ Watt, Jonathan Granar from Houston, and Harold Landry III from Tennessee. Yes, some people might not even know who these guys are, but we all know who TJ Watt is. TJ is having a monster, or he had a monster game last week with 4 sacks, leaving him only a sack and a half away from breaking Michael Strahan's single season sack record. And I think that the Steelers must win this week. So I think Watt is going to. He has 2 things to play for. He's playing for that record. He's playing to make the playoffs. So I think he's going to be motivated today, and I think he's going to get that at least 2 sacks. So that's already putting me off to a good start there. And I went with Jonathan Granar from Houston. Granar has he hasn't had a sack in the last 5 weeks, but he leads the Texans in sacks, and the Titans' O-line has given up 46 sacks this season, so which is like the second most all year. So I went with them. I went with Jonathan just to he's the leading sack guy on the Houston, and the Texans give up a lot of sacks, so I thought that was easy money there. And then Harold Landry III from Tennessee, he's ranked 9th in sacks with 12, and David Mills has been sacked 29 times this year. So, it's kind of a crapshoot, but TJ may be able to do it all by himself. What do you think about that one?
I like the Mills stat right there because he's actually had a decent season, but like you said, he's been sacked a ton this year. So I think the opportunity is there. You also mentioned Greenard. I mean, the guy's had a couple multi-sack games this season. He's been cold, but all it takes is a big day for him to have a multi-sack day. And then if you are betting on sacks, you have to bet on TJ Watt. The dude is one of the front runners probably for the defensive player of the year. I mean, this season he's had 3 games of 3 or more sacks. So he might be able to get you 75% of your bet right there in himself, and he's got a lot to play for. So I'm in with that, and I like the fact that you can bet on sacks because there's some people out there that are IDP guys or really like defensive players and focus in on that. So that's a cool one to bet on. For me, I went with a fantasy option just because I'm 1 week out of the fantasy football season, and I just miss it so much. So I'm going with the fantasy option right here. Monkey Knife Fights Fantasy Challenge. So I need 3 players to combine for X amount of points. There's 3 different options, but I'm looking at the Houston and Tennessee game here. And the first guy I like, and I've liked this guy all year, is Brandon Cooks, who's been red hot the last 3 games in a row: 18.1, 29.2, 19.6. 8 games of 17 plus fantasy points this year. Tennessee gives up the second most points per game to wide receivers. So I really like Brandon Cooks in this. He looks really nicely connected with Mills that you just mentioned as well. I'm also going to pick Deontay Foreman for my second pick, who's actually filled in really nice for Derrick Henry. He's had 3 games of 14 plus fantasy points. Looking at the matchup, it's a really good matchup for running backs in general. He's also had 3 games of 100 or more rushing yards on the ground. So I like Deontay Foreman in this one. And then I don't even have to read off the stats, but A.J. Brown, we know the ceiling. He's had 2 games this season of 31 plus fantasy points. Great receiver. He can be a target hog. I think it was 2 weeks ago he saw 16 targets. I mean, the guy can go off on any given day. So I'm going to combine A.J. Brown, Deontay Foreman, Brandon Cooks for my fantasy challenge for today.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really like the Cooks call. David Mills is having a pretty good season. Like, he's put up some yards.
He needs some respect.
Yeah, he needs a little more respect. I think they may have found a quarterback in Houston, hopefully. And his favorite receiver is Cook, so I think that's a good call there. I was thinking that Derrick Henry was going to pop his head up in this week. I was hoping that he would come back, but it looked like he's inactive. So I'm with you on that one as well. So I'm 100%. Let's get it. That's easy money.
For sure. What's your second pick here for Monkey Knife Fight for today?
All right, so I went to late game slate. I'm doing a touchdown dance. My goal is to get 2.5 TDs with a prize of 1.5. Easy call here. I'm going Cooper Kupp. The Rams are locked in the playoffs, so it looks like they can focus on helping Kupp break the single season receptions a record, for catches and for yardage. And then the number one thing, the icing on the cake, is Cooper Kupp can also win a triple crown at receiver, leading the league in receptions, TDs, and rushing yards. So he has a lot to play for this week, and I think the team is going to rally around him and get him all those accolades there. And then we're going to go with Deebo Samuel. With the Eagles losing to Dallas last night, the Niners have a really good chance of making the playoffs with a win. So Deebo is going to be motivated to ball out and get the 49ers, lead the 49ers a victory. And Deebo is one of the best dual threats in all of the league with 6 reception touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns. So, we like to double dip with those rushing and receiving, and he's one of those guys who can get you both. So I feel confident that he's going to at least get 1 in this game. And then my dark horse, it's the last regular season game. I'm going to go with my guy I've been talking about all season long. If you watch the Viper cast, Ramondre Stevenson, man, that's one of my guys. I've been picking him up in fantasy, like in the 3rd round and all that. No one knew about him, really. It was crazy. But, Damian Harris is questionable this week. I'm not sure if he's been ruled out or not yet. But if he is, Ramondre will be the lead back. And when Harris is out, Stevenson plays well, except for that 1 week where they kind of got blew out and it became they had to throw the ball. But last week, when Harris was out, or he went out during the game, Stevenson rushed for 2 TDs and had like 100 yards. So he's a baller, man, especially as a rookie in that offense. He's a hard runner and one of my favorite players, so I had to show some love. So I'm going Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, and Ramondre Stevenson to total. What was it, 2.5? Yeah. So I need 3 TDs, and I think I can get that easy with these guys. What's your thoughts?
I like all three. I like all three, and I really like that Stevenson call because that's one that's not the most obvious, right? But if we look at Stevenson, some of the games that he got a lot of work, he had multi touchdowns. I mean, week 10, he 20 carries, 2 touchdowns. Last week, 19 carries, 2 touchdowns. So when he gets to work, they run the ball in the red zone. So that can be a really nice call, especially with a Damian Harris banged up right there. Can't bet against Cooper Kupp, so you might as well bet for the guy. Like you said, he's playing for some records here, and some people will say, they just want to go out and win the game. They don't care about records. I think differently. I think differently.
Right.
I think in the back of the quarterback's mind, when they know that their receiver has something that they can achieve, I think they're going to be looking for this guy a lot, which is like to say the least, because they always look for him a lot. He's got 15 touchdowns on the year. And then you mentioned Debo. Debo is this like crazy hybrid running back wide receiver, so he can catch a touchdown or he can run for one. So all good calls there, man. I like that a lot. And I really like the fact that you and I are playing 4 different games today, because I'm going more or less for my second one. And that just says enough for Monkey Knife Fight. A lot of options to play for a given weekend. My second one here, more or less, like I mentioned, I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets game, and I'm looking at the quarterbacks. And I want to say Zach Wilson has been playing better, just not super optimistic about him in this one, because the Bills give up the least passing yards per game in the NFL. And if you look at Zach Wilson, he's had some really low passing days. There's weeks where he's throwing for 160, 145, 170, 102. So even though he's been playing a bit better, they still don't have all their receivers back, for one. And then for 2, Buffalo is just a very tough defense. So I'm going to say Zach Wilson's going to throw for less than 180.5, which is a modest mark, but he's done that plenty of times, and now he plays the Bills without his receivers. Even Elijah Moore, I was trying to see if he was going to play, and he's going to be out for today as well. Josh Allen, though, on the other hand, I know the matchup, they'll say he might not have to throw a lot because it's the Jets, but last time he played the Jets this season, he threw for 366 passing yards. So he does air it out. He's coming off a really bad game versus Atlanta as far as passing goes. So I think he's going to want to get right here for the NFL playoffs. And if we look at the guy, he's got over 4,000 passing yards on the season. 11 of his 16 games have been above 245 passing yards. So for that fact, I'm going to go Josh Allen more than 245.5 passing yards to combine with that Zach Wilson less. What's your thoughts on those 2 guys for today?
You went less on the first one, right?
Yeah, less for Wilson.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Actually, I don't know. If to me it seems like week 18, if you're not in the
Never know.
playoffs, man, people are kind of like on vacation already, and I don't know if the Jets are really going to play that hard, and I wonder if the Bills are going to even play that hard, because they might even sit them out early. Sometimes that happens. They get a nice little lead, they sit them out in the fourth quarter. So I don't know. That one is a tricky one. It's a tricky one because you got to factor in the vacation, the vacation time.
That is true. That is true. It is week 18, and that's another reason why I personally don't play fantasy football in week 18. Some people do, but things are different when there's not a lot to play for certain teams. But again, Monkey Knife Fight, go to monkeyknifefight.com, go to your app store. You can find it there. The promo code is Fantasy Points. It's Fantasy PTS. Very fun. Major and I went through 4 different options to play. There's a ton more, so go check that out. We'll shift over to Thrive Fantasy now, another player prop app. In Thrive Fantasy, if you are not familiar, where can you find it? Same as Monkey Knife Fight. Type it into the App Store on your phone, or you can go to thrivefantasy.com. I was on the website myself today. Very easy to find. And how Thrive works, it's a bit different than Monkey Knife Fight. They give you a list of 20 players, and it's all different players: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and they give you different stats. And you pick the over or under, basically, of these stats. So they might have receptions, passing yards, touchdowns, whatever the case is. You select 10 of them, and then you put your deposit in. So it's a lot of fun because it's totally in your control, over or unders, and you select 10 guys out of 20 listed. So Major and I will go through 2 each. So that's 4, pick 6 more, and you are in business for today. So if you want to go check that out and you are brand new to Thrive Fantasy, the promo code is Fantasy Points. This time it's all spelled out, Fantasy Points, and put together. And if you sign up, you'll receive 100% instant first deposit matchup up to $100. So a good incentive just for signing up and putting some cash down today. So Major, Thrive Fantasy, what is your first pick for today?
I'm kind of gonna piggyback off what I was saying a little bit earlier about like teams being eliminated and teams playing. That was like my main factor in both of my picks here. But I'm going Dalvin Cook less than 105.5 rushing and receiving yards. The Vikings are eliminated from the playoffs, and I think Cook is already on vacation. Last week he put up 16 total yards. So I don't know. I think it's kind of hard to tell someone to go out there and run into a brick wall when you're not even in contention anymore. So I think Dalvin is gonna. He may have an okay game, but I don't think he's gonna get that 105. He's gonna need to beat that. What do you think about that one?
You know what? I think it's a smart pick, and you look at a name like Dalvin Cook, and you automatically think like stud running back. We've seen the huge games, but with not a lot to play for, this guy's been dealing with that shoulder injury. I'm pretty sure he's been wearing like some sort of like brace thing on his shoulder. I don't
Yeah,
think
like
that
a
he's going to
harness.
run the ball 23 times today for no reason. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Dalvin Cook, but we also see a decent amount of Alexander Madison, as long as he's healthy. I haven't even looked, and it's hard to keep track of that. But I'm with you. I'm with you. The guy's been banged up. Why would they, run him into the ground in this game when there's not much on the line? I'm going to go with the same game, and I'm not trying to be a homer at all. I'm not, I promise. But I'm going to go David Montgomery over 80.5 rushing yards. So that's for 110 points. And it's might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm looking at Minnesota. They give up the sixth most rushing yards per game this year. Also
Mhm.
with David Montgomery, before he got hurt within the first 4 weeks, 2 of those 4 weeks, he was 100 or more rushing yards. So he was running the ball really well. Since the bye hasn't been the greatest, but what I really like is volume. And that's my number one thing for running backs. What I look for fantasy is touches, and he gets a ton of touches, especially with minimal competition in the backfield. So we've seen games recently where he's run the ball for 21 or 22 times. I think today's going to be the same. I know they also don't have a lot to play for, but this offense likes to give him the ball. They have Andy Dalton, who's going to run this offense today, so that's super exciting. But I think you can count on David Montgomery to run a lot today. So that's going to be mine. Are you as optimistic or a little hesitate about Montgomery today?
Um, I'm gonna go on your side with this one. It's the last the last game of the season, but I do like when Andy's in the game. He puts up some pretty big yardage. He's throwing for like 300, 250. He's giving you some good yardage,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to open up some lanes for Montgomery. So he could have that game that you're talking about. So yeah, man. For my second one, I'm going with Austin Eckler more than 90.5 rushing and receiving yards. Unlike Cook, and the Chargers are playing for that playoff spot, and I think they're going to go all in today. They have to. They have to win to get in. Um, Last week, Eck totaled 112 total yards, and it was super balanced. He gave like 58 rushing yards and 54 passing yards. So he's one of the most balanced players in all the league. So, and he's kind of, I don't know if he's averaging 50 yards a game, but I'm just like roughly looking at his or briefly looking at his season, and it's always around like 50 yards, 60 yards. So he's going to give you 50, 60 yards rushing. He's going to add another 40, 50 yards in receiving. Um, and I think they're going to lean on him a lot to try to win this game and make it to the playoffs. What's your thoughts?
So it's combined stats, right? You mentioned rushing and receiving, right?
Yes,
We,
sir.
you and I have talked about that plenty, especially for this app. Whenever there's an option for the combination of stats, that always stands out to me, and I like that a lot because this guy's had 7 games this season above 50 receiving yards, and he's a running back. So the fact that he can combine both rushing and receiving, I think last week was a good example. He didn't have a massive rushing day, he didn't have a massive receiving day, but both of those categories, rushing and receiving, were above 50 yards. So I mean, he combines for a ton of yards just in general. And I think he's a huge, huge piece of this offense. So if this offense needs to win, count on him to have 20 or more touches potentially. So I like that one a lot. I'm a huge Eckler fan just in general. My second one, I'm going to look at OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. here for the Rams, who's actually been playing pretty decent for the Rams. I think he kind of caught his stride in a different environment. But The mark here is pretty modest. It's a 3.5 receptions, so pretty much 4 receptions. And I'm going to say over for OBJ. I'm going to say he's going to have over that 3.5 receptions. So in OBJ's 6 games since the bye, 4 of them have been 4+ catching days. So I mean, he's typically doing that. If we look at the last 2 weeks, he's had 15 targets in these 2 games. He's also had 9 catches across the last 2 weeks. So I know it's an offense that features your guy Cup that we mentioned earlier, and he gets a ton. It features Van Jefferson as well. But OBJ's been getting targets every single week, and he's been making plays. So to say that he's going to get 4 catches today, I think is pretty modest. And I'm going to go with that line for this game. What's your thoughts on OBJ on the Rams here?
Excuse me. I'm with you on this. The last 2 weeks, he's had 5 and 4 receptions the last 2 weeks. So he's catching that. I think he kind of, everyone thinks OBJ is this like loud guy. I think he likes being the wide receiver 2 behind Cooper Kupp because he can sneak in and he's scoring touchdowns. He's having a pretty good second part of the season after he got traded. So I'm with you on that one, man. He's getting, like you say, he's getting those targets. Let's see, he's been over like 5 targets pretty much every game except for like maybe 2. But yeah, he's one of those guys who's gonna get some of those leftovers that Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp getting double team. OBJ 1-on-1 with his route running. You can't beat that. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, he looks good too. Just watching those games, he looks good. He looks good, and he looks connected with Matthew Stafford. I want to read off some of Tom Browley's picks. Make sure to stay tuned in for the rest of the Fantasy Point shows going on today. But Tom Browley likes Jamar Chase under 83.5 receiving yards. And when I'm looking at that, anybody would say like, oh, well, this guy just went crazy last week. But keep in mind, Joe Burrow's not playing today. So that definitely is a factor. I like that pick. It's a smart pick, I think. The other selection he has is Austin Eckler over 70.5 rushing and receiving yards, which is the same as Major. So we got 3 for 3 for that one because Major said it. I agreed. And Tom has it in his picks as well. So I think that's got to be a solidified lock for today. Knock on wood. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, especially if you were watching this show all season. Major and I got after it every single week, had a lot of hits, a couple misses here and there that we don't speak on, but it's been a great show talking player prop bets for this fantasy football and just 2021 season in general. Stay tuned for the rest of the Fantasy Point shows going on today. Major, anything you want to say as we close out this show and close out this season?
I just want to shout out our producer, Ben, man. All the graphics and stuff up here had me smiling a little bit. It was pretty dope how he was maneuvering in the background. Shout out to my guy, Nick, for just being a host that he is, keeping us on track, keeping us going. And, man, good luck this week. Make some money. Playoffs is already here. The season went so fast, man. I still can't believe that the season's over.
Wow, flew by, and I'm with you on Ben. The graphics like popped up on the screen. It kind of startled me there for a second. It was just so advanced there. But thank you guys again for tuning in. Fantasy football is over, so to stay tuned or stay in tune with the game, play some player prop bets, especially on these 2 sites. A lot of fun to keep football going. Good luck today, guys.